Hello. Welcome back to another episode of Truth Seekers Radio. I'm your host, Dr. Kenny Williamson. Today we're going to talk about something that was in the headlines, if you haven't heard it. Big popular senator has suddenly passed away. That senator is Lindsay Graham, in case you haven't heard that. He passed away the other day. And then we have a question or not whether the other senator, Mitch McConnell, whether he's passed away or not. He supposedly hasn't passed away, but there's questions involving that. So, as in our usual fashion, we're going to talk about some of that stuff and discuss whether or not it's true. Because, like I've said, and I say all the time, of course, you hear this all the time in conspiracy type deals. You hear the world is a stage. You're watching a movie. Well, the reason you hear that is because, well, what you see on the news, the fake news, and on the television, the tell-you-a-vision, is probably a lie. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that 99% of everything that you see, hear, or read on TV or majority of radio stations, Hollywood, is not true. I could also probably go out on a limb and say, majority of what you were taught your whole entire life is not true. It's propaganda. And so this propaganda machine, has been running since, hundreds of years, probably thousands. How, you ask? Now, I get this all the time. Who on earth would be behind that? Do you know how many people have to be behind this? Well, number one, Satan is running it. Satan and his fallen angels are running it. They've had this thing running since he was kicked out of heaven. So thousands of years. Satan is not a slouch, okay? He's not an idiot. He's very, very smart. So he knows what to put into place, and he knows that it's a long game, okay? He knows there's an end. The Bible predicts it, okay? He knows he's going to be put into hell. The Bible prophesies that. So he knows that, and he knows there's an end. So he knows he has a goal. He wants to steal, kill, and destroy. Okay? So to do that, he's got to play a long game. This isn't just a boom type deal. It's a let's over millennia. Let's convince people that there is no God, or there is no Satan, and you're your own God. Do as thou wilt, right? You're your own God. And you can do anything you want to do. And to reiterate that, you weren't created. You came from an animal. You're a monkey who used to be a fish. See, creation is fake. God is fake. You live on a globe in outer space. You're insignificant nothing. That's what he wants you to believe. So this is a long game. And so I believe that most of the people that are in the news, that are propped up by the news, and in Hollywood and propped up by Hollywood are actors. Now, who's really running the scenes behind it? Well, Satan. And there's several layers there, I'm sure. But, and I said this the other day in a podcast, I called it thespians or actors. So here we are again. We've got more actors on another stage. This is another stage over there in Ukraine, in Russia, and that whole deal. So actors, you say? Well, was Mitch McConnell, not Mitch McConnell, excuse me, was Lindsey Graham an actor? Well, he's a senator. But he was also what you would call a warmonger. Okay, he doesn't have any problem going to war and unaliving as many people as he possibly can. Doesn't have any problems with that. Now, if somebody's attacking you and you're defending yourself, that's one thing, right? But so the question is with Lindsay here, in case you didn't know this, he went over to Ukraine. So what I'm going to do is, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. This will be easier. I'm going to read this list to you here. It's kind of a 48-hour timeline prior to his death. Oh, by the way, I uploaded this yesterday, and there was no volume. So the recording wasn't any good. So this is a re-recording. So it's different than the first one, right? Hopefully this one's better. Anyway, so I'm just gonna run over this real quick. So the question is, did Russia just eliminate the warmonger Lindsay Graham in Kiev? Now, they're calling him a warmonger, and this is from the Russian news, okay, supposedly, because he's the U.S. senator who famously called unaliving Russians, and we have to use our words carefully here. He basically said, unaliving Russians is the best investment that we've ever made. That was basically his statement. He was talking about giving money to Ukraine or giving missiles, buying these missiles or whatever, and sending these things into Russia and unaliving Russians. And so this cost, of course, billions, trillions, whatever, dollar billions, I'm sure, hundreds of millions. And so he says this is the best investment we've ever made. So obviously Russians don't like him. Why would you? And this is all has to do with Ukraine, with Zelensky, right? So back to what are we doing here? What are we supporting these clowns for? Well, anyway, so here's the timeline, okay? 48-hour death timeline is too wild to ignore, okay? So Lindsey Graham meets Zelensky, who's a fake fraud and an actor, just in case you didn't know. He meets Zelensky and tours a hidden, because see, nobody knows it's there, right? So it's a hidden drone manufacturing facility in Kiev. Now, what do you think they're doing with those drones? These aren't drones they're flying around like you see on YouTube, people taking pictures. Okay? These are equipped with explosives, and they're flying them into people. That's what they do now. I literally saw a picture over there where, because these things can be jammed, right, if they're remote control. So they have some kind of a little silky tether that comes off the back. Almost looks like a spider web. It's like a fiber optic cable all rolled up on these things, and they're using that to control them because that's like a wire that sends the signal back and forth, right? It showed this field and area over there. It looks like something out of a Hollywood horror movie from like Land of the Spiders or something. The whole entire area over there is covered in what looks to be spider webs, but it's not. It's the stuff out of those stinking drones they're flying. It's a fiber optic something, basically plastic, I'm sure. So they have literally covered the areas over there with this stuff from flying all these drones everywhere. And of course, when the drone wrecks or blows up, it breaks off and it leaves behind a mess. So God only knows what that's going to do in the future, of trying to clean that stuff up. But see, these you think these cats care about that stuff? They don't. They don't care if they go in there and blow everybody up. Doesn't matter if it's women, doesn't matter if it's children, doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter what they do as the outcome. I mean, over here in the good old USA, we've got all the nutballs over here constantly screaming the EPA and stuff about pollution and stuff. The government's the one that does the polluting, 99% of it, but they don't have to abide by the rules. Now, I have to, but they don't have to, you see? So they scream about all this stuff while they're polluting the whole entire area. Just like now, here, we have data centers going up. polluting, taking up all the water, putting out filthy water. They could care less. They don't say a thing. But if I want to, run my air conditioner and the condensation is not allowed to drip at certain places because it could tear something up. And that's true. That's a true statement there. They don't allow the condensation in certain towns from your air conditioner to drip into the drain because it could pollute something. Condensation from the air. But they'll allow fiber optic cable type plastic material to be drenched all over the whole entire nation, where you can't even walk, can't drive through it, nothing. You can't get it up. That's okay. Don't worry about any of that. Look the other way. So, Graham meets Zelensky and tours a hidden drone manufacturer. And by the way, this is another thing that I can't stand is, I was in the Army briefly years ago in the Army National Guard. So I have a lot of respect for these people. But the point of the matter is used to, you've got an Army man out there carrying a gun or whatever, defending something. They're too cowardly to do that now. So they sit in a facility somewhere and fly these drones and just fly them into people. Fly them into machines, fly them into houses. And so you see the stuff, they've got netting up everywhere in these towns and cities trying to keep the drones out. That's what it's come down to. Yeah. That's the kind of people we're dealing with here. They will literally fly a remote control drone into you. So he goes and looks at the drone manufacturing facility. Okay, hours later, a couple hours later, we don't know how many hours later. Hours later, the Russian MOD, which is something of defense, launches a devastating missile attack and completely obliterates that exact same factory. So he's there touring it and has a video of him and taking pictures of these drones, and Zelensky's right there with him, the actor, the fake actor. So it must be real, right? But I don't know. But next thing you know, Russia blows up the facility. I mean, can you blame them? They're using the drones to unalive Russians, so why wouldn't you blow up the facility? So, simultaneously, at the same time, Russian precision missiles level a high-profile hotel in Kiev packed with top NATO commanders where Graham was reportedly staying. Now, is this coincidence? Or maybe somebody's got something in for Lindsay Graham, right? They say, well, he's at this facility touring it, or he's at his hotel room. So let's just send a couple of missiles out there and get them both at the same time. Maybe we'll get lucky and he's gone straight to hell. I'm sure he's not a Christian. So, I don't know how anybody could be over there messing around with Zelensky in Ukraine, trying to unalive people and being happy about it. I don't know how you could be a Christian and do that. So I'm sure he's burning in hell. That would be my guess. So if he's really dead. So he supposedly comes home, right, to Washington right after that, and then dies suddenly right after he gets home. He's dead. Yeah. So did he really? Oh, and he had a sudden, unexplained illness. Is this out of a James Bond movie? Is my question. So, see, are we acting again, or is this real life? So I don't know what they're doing over there, but did he really? So my question is, did he go over there and get caught in one of these attacks and didn't make it out, but they don't want to start a full-blown war maybe right now? I don't know. So instead of just saying, oh, he got unalived by a couple of missiles over there, instead of doing that, they're like, well, oh no, he's fine. He made it back without a hair. Didn't have a scratch a hair on his head. Didn't harm a hair on his head. He came right on back and walked into his apartment and then died. What'd he die from? Sudden illness. Sudden illness. He literally gave a speech like a few hours before he passed away. Well, hey, supposedly he has no kids. He wasn't married. There's nobody, I don't know who's at his apartment or his house or whatever that found him, but he's gone unalived. Yeah. Now, this particular person here, this Russian news, says he wanted to bring hellish sanctions to Russia. And that is one thing. I watched his video. He wants to bring all these sanctions to Russia to cut Russia off because he says Russia is attacking Ukraine and he's on Zelensky's side. I don't know if the whole war in Ukraine thing is even real. No idea. I mean, the only news you're going to get is fake news. So there you go. If you try to research this at all, you'll see that people have supposedly went over there and tried to film this stuff, and they quickly get unalived or all their stuff is taken away or they get arrested. So no real reporter can go over there. But it was funny because some of the videos that did come out of Ukraine shows all these young people walking the streets and they're all partying, real fancy sports cars over there. And they're like, does this look like a war zone to you? Does this look like there's anything getting blown up over here? I don't know. You know, they show Zelensky with in the beginning of this with, a gun, a machine gun or something, saying he's out there fighting. And people looked at it and said, well, that's not even a real gun. It's an airsoft rifle you're holding. And then you've got Zelensky himself, who's clearly an actor. And we'll talk about that in a second. But so in other words, they're saying, did a Russian strike catch Graham in a drone factory or the NATO hotel? Or possibly did someone in Washington send him there knowing the missiles were coming? Or did he really come back and just drop dead? Nobody knows. Kind of a mystery. But Lindsay was a big guy in with Israel, with old Netanyahu. Okay? Netanyahu, however they say him. BB, is that what they call him? With the whole Israel deal. Now, if you go to your local church, they're going to tell you you need to be supporting Israel. Now, keep in mind, the flag, the Israeli flag, has the Star of David on there. There's no biblical anything for the Star of David. There's no such thing. If you actually do a little bit of research on that star, that's the Star of Remphan is what that is, which is pagan. But it stands to reason, see, the Jews in Israel rejected Jesus Christ. They're the ones that had him put up on a cross. You see what I mean? Same ones. They had the same problem then as they have now. They have rejected God of the Bible. They've rejected Jesus Christ. They don't want to have anything to do with that. They want to do their own thing. See, they did that all throughout the Bible, and God had to keep punishing them over and over and over. So nothing has changed. They're the same. And let me explain something to you real quick in case you don't understand this. I'll try to make it quick. But back in biblical days, it was these same people, the Jews, okay? They went out in the desert and they would see a miracle and then they just changed their minds. They start worshiping golden cows. They start doing all kinds of idolatry, worshiping idols, doing all kinds of filth. It was them that did that. That's what they're doing now. You see, what they've done is they've turned their back on anything wholesome. And over there right now in Israel, it's like, that's why they have the biggest gay pride event over there right now. They're turning an area over there next to Sodom and Gomorrah, next to the Dead Sea, into a gay town, trans town. And they want it to be the biggest pride ever, and even have a pride town where they open it up, and these sodomites are going at it day and night. One thing is to be gay, right? But these guys take it to the extreme. They strip almost completely naked, and they go insane, doing everything opposite of what anybody would do. That's what they're into. They're always the victim, by the way, according to them. So, start a fight and then say, hey, I'm the victim. How dare you do this to me? create terror organizations, create them, fund them, have them go out and do your dirty work, and then if anything happens to you, you're the victim. This has been an ongoing thing since World War II. They're always the victims. Always. But like I'm telling you, what you need to do, and you're not going to hear this on the news, and you're not going to hear this on a Christian radio station, okay? You need to think for yourself. You need to look into what's really going on. And don't just believe because you heard it on the news or a Rockefeller textbook that says a certain group of people have been, terrorized and trying to be snuffed out of existence, and they're the victims. And these other countries, that make really nice, fancy European cars, they're the enemy. They were the enemy. They did it. We don't really know that, do we? But we do know that their story doesn't add up. It never has, and anybody with an open mind can see that. And the bad thing about it is now, for them, for this group over there that loves to hate God, and is always the victim, and always seems to start wars, and, they're always in on it, and people always are getting unalived all around them, but they're the victims. That's what's going on over there. Okay? I digress on that, but you know what I'm talking about. We can talk about that some other time. So, Graham, he's dead. He goes over to visit Zelensky. And then people say, well, the thing about Zelensky is, he's this good guy over here. He's a great guy. Yeah. Let me show you a little video of Zelensky. Okay. So let me see if I can get this to pull up here. I know it's not very big. There it is right there. Right here. Let me play it for you. This thing it never wants to play the first time. I don't know why, but here we go. There he is. Look at him. There he is dancing. This is the president of Ukraine. Okay, here we go. There he is. Look at him. Clearly looks gay. I don't know if he is or not. Looks like a sodomite. No. Yeah, there he is again. He's wearing high heels. So I don't know how anybody could think this is not sodomites. There he is. Look at him. Playing around with other men. Here he is doing a skit because he was a comedian. And see, he's performing in front of Putin there. Okay, and it's a vulgar skit, so I won't continue, but there he is on the left. Okay. He's a thespian. He's an actor. I don't know how nobody can see this. And apparently, they say that not only is he obviously a liar, he's not qualified for the position, just like AOC's not. They're all actors. They auditioned for this part. Okay. And somebody's telling them what to do and say. Apparently he's got a cocaine or some other addiction because he's constantly having to mess with his nose and snorting something. So he's a drug head, I'm sure. But he's also rich now. He's got mansions and stuff all over. So this money going to Ukraine, to Zelensky, is buying people new cars and new houses. But let's keep giving money. And like Graham said, hey, this is the best money we've ever spent right here. Of course, he didn't ask the taxpayers that, though, did he? No. He didn't ask the taxpayers any of that stuff because they would have said no. All right, let me get this one pulled up. Hold on one second. Okay, I've got this one ready. This is a partial interview from a guy on Joe Rogan. Okay, I'm not going to play it all. I'm going to play about 3 minutes of it. But he tells you exactly who he is. Basically, who is he really? Well, Zelensky, he's an actor. He's a thespian. He's a con man. What else is he? He's a drug addict. This is what people have figured out on him. And he's someone who's embezzling money from you and me. That's where our taxes are going, to buy his drugs, to buy his houses. So this is who Lindsay Graham went to go see. Okay, this is who he's visiting before he all of a sudden dies unexpectedly. So listen to this real quick. Let me share it. Here we go. Give it a listen.
I keep asking if I have time. Do I have time to tell the Zelensky story?
Sure.
Because it's another one. It's just, what is Zelensky? In America, he's a hero. He's a real warrior. He's got that nice green, warrior suit on. And here's the truth. And people know parts of this story, but they don't know it in its cleanest narrative. So he was a totally apolitical. He was an outsider to politics, zero experience or interest in government or politics. He was a comedian, and with no manifesto, no party ties. And he does a TV show, a planned TV show called Servant of the People. And the main character in the show does a YouTube video that calls out oligarchs and corruption and eventually becomes popular and is drafted as a protest candidate and eventually becomes president. So Zelensky played on a TV show a person who becomes president by popular demand. In real life, the TV show is supported by an oligarch named Kolomoisky, who owned the TV channel. And Kolomoisky did a huge nonstop promo on that TV show to make it the #1 show. Primetime slots and ads everywhere and crossovers with the news and what have you. 2018, a year before the show goes off the air, Zelensky forms a political party called Servant of the People, the same title as the show. And in no press release, secretly done, and then he does another season of the show. And in April of 2019, he announces his actual candidacy on Instagram. He has no campaign, no rallies, no real platform. He skips the presidential debates others attended. He avoids press conferences, and the few that he did in the beginning were really bad. And Kolomoisky's TV channel gave Zelensky's campaign endless airtime and favorable polls and went after his enemies. The U.S. intelligence agencies, CIA and NSA, helped, U.S. spending $5 billion, by the way, on democracy campaigns in Ukraine, funneled through NGOs. And USAID embeds advisors in his organization to help with the campaign. I'm almost done. And on election day, Zelensky wins with 73% of the vote. And then the war happens with Russia, and he declares martial law, and he ends elections. There's supposed to be an election in 2024. That's what we get for our democracy money. And quite literally, he is an actor in a carefully designed television show. He is a construct, like Epstein is a construct, meaning he's a created entity. And it worked.
There you go. There you go. He's a created entity. He's an actor. The same as Epstein. Okay? It's a face person, a puppet put out there to take the heat. Like I said, he gets elected as a president and immediately declares the martial law and says no more elections, no more presidents. So he's there to stay. Can't get rid of him. They can't get rid of him if they wanted to. An actor, a drug addict. Well, I mean, it's a perfect person. It's the perfect candidate. Do you know how easy a person like that is to control? They have no brain. I mean, he was nothing. Now he's like the president. He's on TV all the time. He's getting to chat with Lindsay Graham, the president, showing up at the White House, getting handed billions of dollars. Like they said, our own government for democracy gave him $5 billion. Then NSAID, NSAID, the big government laundering facility, pays for everything. That's where our money goes. He has mansions, yachts, property all over. Property in America, supposedly down there in Florida. Mansions on the ocean, on the beach. Who do you think's paying for all that? We are. So, that's Zelensky. Okay? There he is. In all his fake Hollywood glory. Another manufactured fake actor. Okay? So that's who Mr. Graham went to go see in a facility. Now, if all this is true, is there any wonder why Russia is sending over artillery? Is there any wonder? That's the kind of clowns we have running around. That's our government supporting it. Because our own government are Satanists. This is all a satanic money laundering filth agenda. You know what else is going over there in Ukraine that they're so proud of and they love? Well, just look into the Bidens. Joe Biden laundering money through there, Obama laundering money through there, his son, whatever, Biden. They make him some bigwig over there at some company. And the son, Hunter, rotted out teeth, is a dope head, a meth head, smoking crack on camera with prostitutes and illegal gun charge. Everything that, like, if me or you did that, we would immediately be arrested, sentenced, and put in jail. But not these guys. Oh, no. Because they're all in it together. It's all fake. It's all one of these things that's going on endlessly that we're paying for and we have to put up with and listen to all the time and then, get into wars over. That kind of deal. Yeah. So let's see what else we've got here real quick. Let's see here. So according to the Alex Jones guys over here, they're talking about this deal, saying it's a massive. They're asking, is it a massive cover-up? It said, did Lindsay Graham die yesterday in a Russian airstrike while he was visiting a secret kamikaze drone factory? Or did he die at home like they said? Researchers are examining the timeline to discover whether or not Graham, who was reportedly still in Ukraine in the early afternoon, would have been able to make it back to D.C., where he reportedly died of a cardiac arrest before midnight. Yeah, so Graham is seen as one of the top architects to use the Ukraine as a pawn to trigger a larger war between Russia and us. Okay, so his death is a major blow to these other warmongers who, as well as leaders of the Greater Israel Project and their plans for a Middle East-wide war. They want war. They're warmongers. They don't care who gets hurt in the crossfire. Normal civilians, they could care less. This is all about money and war and the whole nine yards. That's what they do. So, also, a former CIA case officer came forward, and he said there was a major expose on Graham where he had been paid hundreds of millions of dollars by the Ukrainian dictator Zelensky in the last 4 years. Well, we're paying Zelensky billions, so he can pay a little bit back to Graham because he's collecting the money and doing whatever he wants. Or somebody is. Keep in mind, Zelensky is an actor. Somebody's actually pulling the strings. The people that got him the position, that's filming the cameras, that's putting it all on the news, it's all fake. He's an actor. Somebody has the money. I don't know who. You can only imagine. But a lot of it trickles down to the people around here, and not here per se, but here in America, and they're all filthy rich because of it. So, there we go. He's unalive now, supposedly by, of course, the one thing it said was unknown sudden illness. Now it's a cardiac arrest. So he was fine when he was giving the speech. He gave a speech all about putting sanctions on Russia. He wants to close them down. He wants to do all this stuff as he's over there in Ukraine, trying to keep this Ukraine war going on forever. Just keep spending billions of dollars while people... What? It's a never-ending black hole is what it is of money laundering. That's why they like it so much over there. Okay? They like it over there because it's the same location where lots of illegal substances come from. right in the beginning of this whole deal, they were trying to claim that, Putin, and I don't know, but they were trying to claim that Putin, is this evil monster. He comes and has a video where he's telling people, the American people, he says, you're being lied to. He said, you're being lied to by these people. I'm not really doing any of this stuff. I am not your enemy. The Russians are not your enemy. He said, but you are being ran by vampires who likes to drink the liquid out of small children. Okay. And he called it a vampire ball over here. Was he wrong? Well, all these Hollywood people, all they talk about is the stuff they put on their face, and they talk about putting human blood on their face from kids. So apparently he's not wrong. He also said that the stuff that he was bombing over there right in the beginning, they were trying to claim it was, he's bombing churches, schools, whatever. He says, no, I'm bombing. They've got gain of function deals over there. So what they're doing is it's the same thing that happened here with Fauci. Okay. Another devil and a liar. Hopefully he'll be in hell soon. If it was up to me, he'd be there now. But takes a disease, a known disease that somebody has, like let's just say the flu, right? And then takes it to a lab and has these scientists look at it, and they're like, okay, well, you can get it from a surface if you touch it. So let's try to make it worse. Instead of it living for 48 hours on a hard surface, let's try to make it live for 5 days on a hard surface. And instead of it just barely going through the air, let's make it where it can fly all over the air. So we want to make it worse so people get sicker. Why? Why would you not be working on something to eradicate it? No. We don't want to eradicate it. We want to make it worse. So that's called gain of function. So this is what it does now, but we want it to do this. Gain of function. That is done on diseases, bacterias, things like that are, maybe mild. Let's make them worse so people can get sick. This is all about unaliving people. This is a devil agenda. The more we can spew out over everybody, the more people, their lifespan goes way down. So that's what happened over there, supposedly in China. The lab over there in China, right? Our government's funding it, and they're funding gain of function over there. And we know it's going on, and they know it's going on, because before the gain of function, guys like Fauci and them, they're already applying for patents on the vaccine for it. So that way they can make millions, billions. So what is that about? It's about money. It's about money and genocide. That's what the devil wants. You to not make it. So they're purposely making viruses worse. Gain of function. We'll come to find out over there in Ukraine, they've got a whole bunch of those labs over there that we are funding. That's where our money goes. That's where our tax dollars goes, is to fund things where they're going to turn around and spray it onto us. That's what we're funding. And we just do it. Nobody has a word about it. So nobody says a word about it, just let it go. I don't believe it is conspiracy. Well, apparently Putin knows where they're at, and he goes over there and bombs them. And then, because I remember it was on the news, they said some of these things had been bombed, and so now this stuff had been released, see? They're saying, oh, well, you should have never bombed it, because now this stuff is released into the air. So that's what they're doing. So what's really going on? Well, that's why you hear it's a stage, it's all acting. You don't really know. We know these people put in place are actors. We know they're liars. We know they're devils. They're devil worshipers. Okay, they're sodomites. They like little children. That's another thing that's going through this whole deal over there. All these kids disappearing constantly. Nobody says a thing about it. So that's a perfect location to do it over there in Ukraine. because they just allow as long as the money goes through, anything goes. That's why the Bidens love it over there. That's why our governors and everybody loves it over there. Anything goes. It's like their little playground over there where they can do anything they want and never get caught, never get in trouble for it. So no wonder we're giving them money all the time and protecting it, right? From Russia or whatever. So anyway, having said all that, hopefully this one records this time, because I never really know until it's done. But so there we have. That's a little bit about Zelensky. That's about Graham. I'm sure it's going to come out here in the near future. More details. Who knows? But that's what led up to him all of a sudden dying of an unknown illness, just like that. Now, I said I was going to talk about Mitch McConnell. It's already been 41 minutes, so I think I'm going to wait on that one. But I have a whole bunch to talk about on him, too. You know, he's been missing for 3 or 4 weeks and all of a sudden showed up with an AI picture to prove he's alive. Is he alive or is he not alive? We'll do that on another podcast. But isn't it funny how I think the other day, it's been maybe a month ago now, but whenever, a couple of podcasts ago, you know, I did a podcast on thespians because AOC has come out to be an actor and all the others. I'd been saying that for a while. These are fake people put up, and here we go. Zelensky, an actor. Of course, we knew that because, you know, it came out, it showed him dancing around, acting all gay and all the stuff that he did, you know, with these other men. He's clearly a sodomite, you know, so he's perfect. Easy to control. Of course, he can take the fall if anything happens, right? The people behind the scenes aren't going to be doing that. They're not going to take the fall for this. They're going to collect the money, and guys like him will take the fall. But, you know, it's one of those things. I mean, guys like me and you guys out there, there's nothing we can do about it. We're stuck here. You know, we're in this world, but we're not a part of this world. Okay, we have a home in another world, not here. We have a heavenly home waiting on us. And this kind of junk isn't going to be going on. These guys aren't getting away with this stuff. That's why these people, they hate Jesus Christ. They hate the millennium, you know, his literal reign on earth for 1,000 years, because it says he's going to be ruling with an iron fist. Okay? You're not getting away with this kind of stuff. It's going to be judged right then. So you try to pull some shenanigan, you're done. Righteous judgment, not this, well, I can do this because, no. None of that stuff works here. Your liberal stuff doesn't work anymore. You're going to go by the rules. You know, so that's why they hate it. That is why they hate it. And on a side note, by the way, I've been doing some TikTok lives, and I have found, and maybe this is coincidence, but I don't think so, majority of your people who, well, this has to do a lot with flat earth, but I won't talk much about that. But I've noticed that any of the people that come on there that are 100% dead set on the globe, and they want to get mean about it and start cussing you out and calling you names because you have a different idea than what they have, I've asked several of them now, and every one of them's an atheist. None of them believe in God of any kind. So keep that in mind, Christian, if you're listening to this. If you're a Christian and you're listening to this and you're on the fence and you're like, well, Kenny, because I had somebody give a message saying, well, you know, hey, I believe in such and such, brother, but I don't believe in flat earth. That's ridiculous. Well, it's in the Bible. The Bible teaches it, whether you want to believe it or not. But let me tell you something, though. The globe was come up by devils, Catholics, Jesuits. That's who pushed it to begin with. The same Catholic Jesuits that pushed evolution. That says everything was created. You came from a monkey. They're the same people teaching that. Keep that in mind when you believe everything they say hook, line, and sinker because you saw it on the television. I'm going to tell you right now, if you hadn't heard about it in school from a teacher who didn't know what they were talking about, they were taught that themselves, and you hadn't seen it on the boob tube, you yourself wouldn't unbelieve it. There is no way any person with a brain in their head would look out over the ocean or anything and say, oh, look, we're on a water ball in outer space. You would not think that. You would trust your own senses. You would believe that there's a creator, and you wouldn't look at yourself and say, oh, yeah, I evolved from a monkey, from a fish, from nothing, from a big bang that just happened in the middle of nowhere, just nothing exploded into something. Think about that for a second, okay? But all the people that push this and push it and say that you're crazy if you even question it, they're all godless devils. Keep in mind who you're believing, okay? So go ahead and say out loud, I'd love to hear you. I would love to hear a professing Christian in a church say, hold on a second, I want to believe the devil, and I like the devil and his lies. I want to believe only people who renounce God and renounce Christ. That's who I put my trust in, not anybody else, because that's exactly what you're doing. Okay? You're believing the liar, and you won't even look at anything else. You know, well, he's a scientist, but he's also a devil and a liar. He doesn't believe in God. He doesn't believe in anything. Same one pushing this stuff, okay? Think about it. Think about your source. Have you ever thought about that? You know, see, that's the one thing I've noticed on these TikTok deals. Every one of them that comes on, and they start like they're intelligent. You think there for a second, well, this guy's pretty intelligent. You know, he believes that we're on a spinning water ball in outer space, and he seems pretty intelligent. He seems sincere until you disagree with him a few times. And the next thing you know, out comes the devil. All of a sudden, the demon manifests, and they start talking about filth and sex and calling you names. And that's who you believe, right? Aren't you proud of yourself? You see, when you don't agree with one of these devils and you invoke something like the Bible or the name Jesus Christ, or you just say, look, I believe what I can see, my God, with my God-given eyes, and what I can touch and what I can feel. I don't believe Hollywood. Then the devil comes out. Then they start verbally attacking you. Then they get vicious. If they had a leg to stand on, they wouldn't need to do that, would they? No. But that's what, and those are the people that all these Christians I know, they put their faith in them. They believe what they say, hook, line, and sinker, and they're nothing but liars, deceivers, and devils. That's who they believe. So you think about that next time you just automatically discount something that the Bible clearly teaches. You think about who you're listening to, okay? You listening to Zelensky, a dope-headed liar con man? Is that who you're listening to? Is that who you put your faith into? Well, he's right up there with all the other ones. So how about Bill Gates? Is that who you trust? Another godless demon? How about Musk? Oh, he's the smartest man in the world. He's a devil. He doesn't even believe in God. But he sure does believe in Baphomet because he dresses up like him. Believes in the devil. Dresses up like the devil. That's what his costume is. You believe them? Do you? Think about it. Open, if you think you're a Christian and you want to know the truth, open up your Bible if you've ever read it before. And you don't even have to go very far. Go to the very first page of Genesis. The very first page. And read all about the firmament. Okay? If you can't get that and you don't believe it, you might as well close the book because you ain't going to believe nothing else in there. You see what I mean? If you don't believe Genesis on the first page, where it talks about God separating water from water, not vacuum, not outer space, water, And in between that water, he put something called a firmament to separate the two. And he put the stars and the moon and the sun in the firmament, and they move in a circuit, okay? If you don't believe that because you watched Cartoon Network too many times, go ahead and close your Bible and throw it away, because you ain't going to believe nothing else in there. If you don't believe that, how are you going to believe that God manifested himself as flesh and came down here as a human being, born as a virgin, and then died for your sins? How are you going to believe any of that? That's way further out than the stars you can clearly see in your head or up in the sky above your head, going in a circle, rotating around Polaris. They never change. They've never changed. They've been the same since biblical times. But you choose to believe that this thing is hurling at 66,600 miles an hour around the sun. Satan's number. And the angle of the earth is 66.6 degrees. Of course it is. And of course, you know, the circumference is 0.666. Believe everything the devil tells you. Okay? You just believe it. Regardless of how stupid it is, because you're programmed from birth. I understand that. You were taught that as a little kid. That's why you believe it. It's the same reason a little kid believes in Santa Claus. You can literally tell a little kid, Santa Claus is real, and he lives in the North Pole, and he has little elves, and they make your toys. And so, oh, you want a Nintendo this year? Hopefully you get it from Santa Claus. And they literally believe in Santa because their parents told them there was Santa. Their grandparents told them there was Santa. Their school teachers told them there was Santa, and the TV says there's Santa. So they believe it. They believe it hook, line, and sinker until they get old enough and somebody says, hey, listen. Surely you don't still believe that joke, do you? Okay? The same for the Easter Bunny. The same for the Tooth Fairy. The difference is with you and me, the way I was, is we were told the same thing with the globe. But nobody ever set us straight and said, well, listen, that was also, that was an Easter Bunny deal. But the TV continues to push it as you're an adult, so that's why you still believe it. You know, there you have it. That's called propaganda. That's why they teach it to children, okay? If they did not teach that to children, nobody would ever believe it because it's too ridiculous. Just like Santa Claus. There's no adult going to say, oh, there's a magic guy with magic elves up in the North Pole that somehow magically creates all your toys up in the snow and then magically changes size and comes down your chimney and puts it in there and eats cookies and drinks. Seriously? Wake up before it's too late. Okay? Wake up. Just wake up. I'm telling you right now. Don't believe everything that you hear on the Tell-You-a-Vision. You're going to be in for sore surprise when you find out it's not true. But having said all that, thanks for listening. I'm done. It's been almost an hour. We'll talk about Mitch McConnell another day, another podcast. Any questions? truthseekers2012@gmail.com. It's flatbro.com. truthseekersministry.org. truthseekersradio.com. Check it out. Contact me. I think that's it for now. Until we meet again, God bless you.